Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about the season premiere, season 1 of hopefully many seasons, episode 1 of Marvel Studios' Loki, entitled Glorious Purpose. Now, I want to talk about the title a little bit, but I'm going to come back to that and talk about it a little bit later. What I want to talk about first is, well, one, I want to talk about how much I enjoyed this episode. I absolutely love most of what I saw in this episode. I love the visual look to it. The visual look, that's redundant. I love the, I love the way it looks. I love the banter between Loki and Morbius. Owen Wilson is great in this. Tom Hiddleston is just, he's Tom Hiddleston. It's great. I love the, well, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to read you guys a description of the episode that is on the Disney Plus website or the app, whichever you view it on. And then I'm going to read something else a little bit about something I picked up on in the episode description. So the episode description says, after picking up the Tesseract in Avengers Endgame, oh, I have it written over here. I don't have to look so far. After picking up the Tesseract in Avengers Endgame, Loki finds himself called before the Time Variance Authority, a Kafkaesque bureaucratic organization that exists outside of time and space. When I read that description, I read it after I already watched the episode, and I thought, what an accurate description that is, because Kafkaesque is like the perfect way to describe at least a lot of what I saw in this episode. Now, a lot of you might be wondering, what the fuck does that mean? Well, that's what I'm here for, right? So I'm gonna read. Sometimes I struggle to explain these kinds of things because it's like I see it and I can go, oh yeah, but it's hard for me to get in front of the camera and go, this is what this is. So a lot of times I'll just kind of like look it up and read you guys a definition. So that's what I'm gonna do. So the term Kafkaesque, I'm going to read you a description that I found on Merriam-Webster's website. And what I liked about it was it didn't just define the term; it gave you kind of like an example of it. So this I am going to have to kind of turn my head a little bit to read. Kafkaesque, of or relating to or suggestive of Franz Kafka or his writings, especially having a nightmarishly complex, bizarre, or illogical quality. Now, that alone, I think, if you've watched the episode, comes to really define a lot of what you see. But I'm going to read a little bit more about Kafka himself, just to kind of add some color to this description and how I feel it's very apt when it comes to describing at least what we saw in this first episode. Franz Kafka was a Czech-born German-language writer whose surreal fiction vividly expressed the anxiety, alienation, and powerlessness of the individual in the 20th century. Kafka's work is characterized by nightmarish settings in which characters are crushed by nonsensical blind authority. Thus, the word Kafkaesque is often applied to bizarre and impersonal administrative situations where the individual feels powerless to understand or control what is happening. I don't know about you guys, I could not think of a better way to describe what Loki must have been experiencing in that episode, and what he will probably continue to experience in this show. Such a great explanation and such a great use of that word to describe this show by Disney. And one thing, what this kind of reminds me of when we talk about Kafkaesque is it feels very similar to another Marvel show that some of you may or may not have seen, not nearly as popular as the Marvel Studios stuff, is Legion, which comes on FX. And since it's largely based in the X-Men universe, up until recently, it was owned by Fox. So it's been a Fox property. I don't even know if Legion still actively airs or if it's done. I think I might have missed maybe like the second half of the most recent season. I'm not sure. I know I'm not caught up on it. But if you made a Kafka-esque scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably put Loki at like a 4 and Legion at like an 8 or 9. So if you watch this and you're like, this kind of weird, freaky, illogical shit is really cool to me, Legion is that with the dial turned all the way up. So I dig that kind of shit. So when we talk about, the purpose of this channel, when I say I'm here to watch shit so you don't have to, I tell you, what I think of things. And if you trust my opinion, you will then go and say, okay, this is something that I want to watch, or this is something I don't want to watch. I fuck with this kind of stuff heavy, right? So this is right up my alley. Like I said, Legion is this turned up, the dial all the way to 10, and I rock with Legion. And Legion is a lot more. Legion is that's going to be a lot more difficult for people to rock with. But Loki is a more it's something that a greater group of people can appreciate than I think Legion is. But it's a great description. I think that's what we got from the show. It even looks similar to Legion. If you've seen Legion, the time variance authority in this episode looks very similar to some of the settings in Legion. And it's like this weird, almost kind of like, it looks futuristic and dated at the same time, if that makes sense. You know, like you see there's a scene where Loki's looking out into from like an aisleway into like an open space, and it looks very futuristic, but at the same time there's like this kind of like almost like an old newspaper kind of yellowish look to it. It feels very old. It feels like it's from like the 70s or something, but futuristic at the same time. Legion does that, and I really dig those sorts of visuals that are almost conflicting in nature. Like, oh, it looks futuristic and old as shit at the same time. So a lot of this, when I say I really love this episode, a lot of this is a situation where these things just really like resonate with me. I dig this kind of stuff. Like, so if you dig this kind of stuff too, this show should be right up your alley. But hopefully you already have watched this episode before watching this video, because I'm not going to be withholding spoilers, because I am going to cover this episode every week. I mean, this show every week. Speaking of which, before I continue, this show is going to have the same dynamic as I did with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So on Wednesdays, when the new episodes come out, I'm going to watch it right away. I'm going to hop here in front of you guys and give you my initial reaction. Then on Sundays, I'm going to record a deep dive with Axel Foley and Delvin Cox, who, if you watch, I believe I did every single deep dive on Falcon and Winter Soldier with Axel, and then we brought on guests at certain times. This one, we're going to do, all of them, we're going to be with Delvin. Delvin did, I think, he did the finale of Falcon and Winter Soldier, and he did a previous episode, maybe like episode 3 or 4, something like that. So it's going to be all 3 of us for all 6 of these episodes of Loki on the deep dives. We're going to record that on Sundays, so I'm probably going to give that to you guys on Mondays. So double coverage on Loki for the next 6 weeks, so hope you enjoy that. Next thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about that title. So it's called Glorious Purpose, and I thought the title was, I guess, less than it ended up being. What I mean by that is I thought Glorious Purpose, okay, that's pretty par of the course. So, you know, standard title that you don't have to dig too deeply into. And Loki says something, I think I wrote it down. At the very beginning of the episode, he says, I am Loki from Asgard, and I am burdened with glorious purpose. And I thought, okay, well, there's the title of the episode. Then later, we see, what was it? Loki was with Morbius, played by Owen Wilson. No, he wasn't. This was after that. So Loki escapes from Owen Wilson's character Morbius, in what I thought was a great scene, because we have this long conversation between these two, right? And I thought it was a really interesting conversation, but I wondered where's the end game here? What's the point of this conversation? I'm kind of waiting for Owen Wilson to get to this point. And I'm gonna stop calling him Owen Wilson. You guys know who he is. I'm gonna call him Morbius, who is a canon character, by the way, as is the TVA within Marvel Comics. But Morbius essentially says that Loki's purpose is to make people better, like the best version of themselves. And he says that up against a shot of the Avengers coming together at the end of the first Avengers movie. Kind of like, you know, hey, your presence finally got this squabbling group of superheroes to come together to fight for one purpose, which is against you. And it kind of made it sound like, you know, he doesn't really have, you know, a purpose for himself other than making other people better, even though in his head, his purpose is to rule and do all of these other things, right? So at the end of this conversation, which I thought was a great conversation, but a little long-winded, we arrive at the point, and Morbius is interrupted. And he leaves the room, and he comes back, and Loki is gone. And Loki is gone with this little clicker that the TVA seems to have that kind of like manipulates time. Like you can rewind people, essentially. And I thought, no. Let me see this. So I rewound it, and you can actually see when Loki takes the clicker out of Morbius's pocket. And I thought that was a nice little touch. Like they could have skipped that, and it probably would have bothered me. Like I could assume, you can assume obviously Loki stole the clicker. The show shows you that Loki has the clicker once we see him again afterward. But they could have not shown him getting it. But when Morbius discovers that it's gone, he calls him like a mischievous scamp or something like that. And I thought, oh, no. Let me see if I can see the moment when he takes it. And you can. So if you didn't look for it or if you didn't see it, check it out. You can see it. It's there. So eventually Loki comes back to this same room and he's by himself. And he starts watching kind of like this film reel of his own life. And it arrives at, one, it starts, he's watching the moment from Thor Ragnarok where he's sitting with Thor and Odin dies and he's crying. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is a great scene. And then after that, he watches the scene of himself being killed by Thanos, which kind of reminded me, I'm like, wait a minute, this Loki has not experienced that yet. So that this has to be a lot for him to see. And then you hear the snapping of his neck from Infinity War, and he just kind of like, you could just see him just wither inside, like, oh my God. And then he scoffs and goes, glorious purpose. And I thought that was a wonderful scene. I thought all of that scene was amazing. The best scene of the episode to me, because I like the idea of Loki entering into this situation feeling like he does have a glorious purpose to rule and all that. And then to find out that ultimately his only purpose is to help other people be great. And ultimately he ends up dying having achieved none of what he thinks he's meant to achieve. And it's like, this is my glorious purpose, to die at the hands of Thanos, having achieved nothing, at least nothing from his perspective of ruling everything. So I thought that was a wonderful scene, and I really enjoyed him coming to that realization. And then we see afterward, and I believe that moment triggers Loki will trigger Loki to help Morbius, because now he does want to have a purpose. He wants to have a glorious purpose. He wants to achieve something of value before he dies at the hands of Thanos, and he hasn't. And he has another nice moment where he talks about what was it? Shit, it was right at the tip. It was right at the tip of my tongue. Oh man, it's right there. I don't want to leave from it because it's so close. And so he was sitting down. Oh, he says that he talked about his motivations, and he's like, I don't enjoy hurting people. It's something that the weak do to show power over others. And I thought that was a really interesting character moment for Loki as well. So, and Loki is and always has been and will continue to be one of the most interesting characters within the MCU. They do such great things with him, and they found a way to add even more complexity to his character. And I'm interested to see where this show goes, because it sounds like he's going to end up having to hunt himself. Morbius says that they have a variant that's been killing their officers, and the variant is him. So I'm assuming it can't be this Loki, because you can't recruit this Loki to catch this Loki. So I'm assuming that maybe there's another variant like this. I don't know. Maybe this version has a variant, or maybe a future version. One that say he hadn't gone back in time, or I don't know. I'm not even gonna start trying to wrap my head around that timey-wimey mind-bending shit. But I'm assuming there's a separate variant that this variant is gonna have to help catch. So really interesting stuff. I really like where this is going. It looks like it's gonna have a whole lot of twisty turns and mind-bending stuff and time travel and Kafka-esque shit. And like all of this is right up my alley. So I can already tell I'm probably going to love this show. It's probably going to be my favorite of the three so far. And it's just one of those shows that just hits everything that I enjoy. But there's a couple more things I want to talk about, kind of like bullet point notes. So I really enjoyed a lot of the visuals that take place at the beginning of the episode that let us know the nature of the TVA. You have like, there's the robot who is kind of like burns off Loki's clothes. Kind of a cool thing. Then he drops down a level and has this interesting scene with this guy, and he's like, are you a robot? And Loki's like, well, what if I'm a robot and I just don't know it yet? And he's like, oh, burn your body from the inside out. Like, okay. Oh, shit. I thought that was really cool. Then it has the thing that's almost like being at the DMV or something. Like he has to take a ticket and there's no line, but the line for it curves back and forth like an amusement park, and there's no one there. and the other guy lost his ticket and he just gets disintegrated, and Loki's like, shit, where's my ticket? I thought that was really cool. And then questions for you guys. If you know, there's a scene where when we first meet Morbius, he's in like the year like 1548 or something like that in France, and he's investigating a murder, presumably of one of his agents, and a kid shows up in the church. And he asked this kid some questions, and the kid has like he's like, what's this blue on your teeth? And the kid has some bubble gum. Blue bubblegum. Do any of you understand what that was about? Like, what's the significance of the blue bubblegum? I wonder if that's something that maybe I'm not catching, or if that's something that's going to be revealed later. You even see the blue bubblegum in the closing credits. So really curious about where it's going to happen with that. Another interesting thing. When he first arrives at the time variance, they say his name is Loki Lofison. And I thought, for a minute, I'm like, Loki Lofison? Like, where the fuck did he get a last name from? Where the fuck did he get a last name from? But then I thought, Thor is Odin's son. Thor Odin's son of Odin. And then I'm like, oh shit, right. The frost giant, who is Loki's actual father, was named Laufey, which we see all that play out in the first Thor movie. And so he is Loki Lofison. So cool little thing that it took me a second for that to snap into place. Like, wait, what? But one thing that I don't want to say I had a problem with this, but it was enough for me to write it down as a question. The judge said, the Loki asked basically about the nature of his crimes, and he's like, you're guilty of messing up the timeline, and he's like, no, I'm not. And the judge is like, well, who is? And he's like, the Avengers, they're the ones that went back in time. And the judge says they did what they were supposed to do and you didn't. And just a kind of like a rhetorical question for me is, we don't know the nature of what our timeline is supposed to be. So if we don't know what the nature of our timeline is, and we deviate from it, how is that something that we can be punished for? Like that seemed weird to me. Like, okay, well, he doesn't know that their time travel is okay, but his isn't, or that their time travel is planned and part of the timeline and his isn't. So it seems like a thing where you can just be like, hey, you fucked up, and then put him back in his timeline, erase memory. I don't know, but it sounded like they were going to punish him. They said they do a reset. I don't know what that means, but it sounded bad. And I'm like, well, how do you get found guilty for doing something that you don't even know that you did? It's like some like weird like Minority Report type shit. I really like the fact that Morbius called Loki like a pussycat in the grand scheme of people who are out there messing up the timeline. There was a term he used for these people, and Loki said, like me, and he's like, no, you're like a pussycat, you're small potatoes. Can you imagine being someone as arrogant as Loki who perceives themselves as everything belongs to me? This is my right. And this guy just calls, you're small potatoes in the grand scheme of things. I feel like that had to crush Loki's ego. Let's see. Oh, and then the last thing that I want to talk about, well, two things. One, they do a great job with these comedic side characters. Like this Casey guy that works at the TVA, I thought he was pretty funny, like every time we saw him. And he's like, what was the guy in WandaVision? There was someone in WandaVision who was like that. There was I can't remember I had somebody at the tip of my tongue who was like the best example of this. But Kat Dennings has been kind of like that character, and that's not who I'm thinking of from WandaVision, by the way. She was like that in Thor, but there was somebody else in WandaVision who was kind of like that. But they're really good with these kind of like side characters who are brought in for comic relief. Like they always just work, and you would think they would be tedious or irritating that they kind of like have these characters in all the time, but they always seem to work. So I really like this Casey guy. And then the last thing is the ending. So the end, we see, I think they're in Oklahoma in like 18 something in the 1800s, and the TVA authorities say something to the effect of like, whatever's going on here isn't that big a deal. Set a charge, reset, and we're gonna dip. And then they see a hooded figure, and I guess we got to presume that that's Loki, since Morbius said that that's the variant that they're trying to catch, but why would he hide himself? I mean, you're Loki. Why would you hide yourself? And he sets them all on fire and then takes what I'm presuming is to be the charge, because he says, set a charge, which I'm assuming means an explosive of some sort. Or maybe the charge is like an explosive that kind of like, it's not an explosive like it blows up everything, but it kind of like maybe has like a blast radius that kind of like uh, wipes the memories or like resets the timeline within a certain radius. So maybe him stealing that prevented them from essentially being able to reset the timeline. So I'm not entirely sure, but let me know what you guys think in the comments. And then lastly, there's a character, I think her name is Hunter B-15. I don't know if they say it, but I think I saw it in the subtitles because I always watch with subtitles. And yeah, as a side note, she's played by, oh gosh, I'm gonna butcher her. I'm not gonna butcher her name, but it's the woman who played Ruby on Lovecraft Country. So it was cool seeing her as well. So lots of great stuff in this first episode. I really enjoyed this first episode. Lots of fun, lots of the kind of stuff that just the heavy kind of like almost like sci-fi type stuff that just really floats my boat. So I'm really gonna enjoy covering this, assuming that the quality of the show doesn't take an inexplicable plummet. But you know, I'm really gonna enjoy this one. Seems like it's gonna be really, really fun, really, really entertaining. And like I said, two episodes a week. This short kind of like first impression kind of thing, and then a deep dive with myself, Axel, and Delvin, usually probably around Monday. So I guess I'll see you guys on Monday. Let me know what you think of the episode in the comments. If you know what that bubblegum was about, let me know. Let me know what you think about the ending. Let me know everything, what you think about everything. Let me know. And I'll see you guys next week. Peace.